Hey everyone, Caden here, and welcome to my next video in my ChatGPT for Schools series, where I go over how ChatGPT can benefit both teachers and students, as well as some concerns that ChatGPT's introduction to education may present. In this episode, we're going to be talking about English and the humanities as a whole, and how ChatGPT's potential introduction might impact that subject. So, first of all, I want to say, if you've watched my previous video on where I talked about this in the context of math, for humanities, it's a much more contentious subject in my mind. For math and other quantitative subjects, the benefits of ChatGPT clearly outweigh the downsides, and it is a very, very purely positive tool for those subjects. However, there are a lot more questions that arise when we think about how ChatGPT may be introduced to humanities. So, first, before we get into the real ethics behind it, I wanted to talk about what it can do. So, ChatGPT, right now for humanities, it can write. You can ask it to say, write a paragraph about how Manifest Destiny changed North America, just as a random example for, like, say, a history paper. And it'll write a paragraph. It can absolutely answer pretty much any prompt and write a thing. What it can also do is it can create outlines, and it can be used as almost a brainstorming tool in order for you to generate ideas to try to write off of. So it can do both the brainstorming and the writing aspect of any given essay or prompt. And this can actually be a very positive thing sometimes, because what it can do, have you ever been in that situation where you're sitting down to write a paper and you just can't get started? You're sitting with a blank Word doc, the little cursor flashing on and off, and you just can't get started. And with ChatGPT, it can stop that blank page problem and just get something down, an idea, just a paragraph, something on the page that you can work off of in order to really get started writing your full essay. And that is something that I have personally used, not for school, but for other projects, that has been very, very effective and useful. Now let's go over some of the things that it can't do. So, as I mentioned in my first video, ChatGPT is not currently connected to the internet. What this means is that it can't effectively pull quotes, and it doesn't actually have the raw text of most like books or pieces of media. So deep analysis of any given passage is pretty difficult for ChatGPT to do. Most of its ideas that it brings up will be pretty surface level and superficial unless you give it an idea and ask it to come up with some further questions to answer. Also, a lot of the time, the writing is kind of mediocre. Like, if we read through this paragraph on Manifest Destiny that ChatGPT wrote, like, it's fine. It's not horrible, but it is in no way a phenomenal piece of writing. What I've found when working with ChatGPT is that ChatGPT produces the best writing and works the best when you don't just give it the prompt about how Manifest Destiny changed North America or whatever, but you actually give it almost an outline of the essay you want it to write. You give it like a thesis, some topic sentences, key pieces of evidence, maybe a few bits of analysis you want to make sure it hits on, and ideas that you want the essay to cover. And then have ChatGPT almost build in all of the filler between those ideas that you had. That is when ChatGPT can produce very, very good writing. When you just give it the prompt, I've found that it ends up being somewhat subpar. So, now that we've covered briefly what it can and can't do, let's talk a little bit about ethics. And this is going to be the bulk of the video, because the ethics of introducing ChatGPT to humanities is a little bit complicated, given that, yes, it can write for you, it can think for you. And having talked to many humanities teachers at my school, I have heard a lot from teachers about how fearful they are about how ChatGPT may stop students from really learning how to write and will just harm students' learning. And I think that that is a potential reality. But I am frankly much more hopeful, and I think there are many things that schools can do to try to get the good stuff out of ChatGPT while kind of trying to mitigate the negative side effects. So, For me, the biggest question when I think about how ChatGPT should be introduced to humanities is I think about what is the point of assigning writing and assigning essays and assigning various writing assignments. And this, I think, varies depending on the class, the subject, and actually just the project itself. And the purpose of writing an English essay is very different than the purpose of writing a history essay, for example. And I think that depending on the different purposes of the writing assignment, I think that ChatGPT can be utilized or not utilized in different ways. So, for instance, ChatGPT, if the purpose of assigning a writing assignment is to teach students how to write, I don't think ChatGPT should be used at all. Because if your purpose is learning how to write, you have to do that writing yourself in order to have the growth. I think that in any scenario where the purpose of writing is to learn how to write, really ChatGPT is going to be a negative tool in that situation. However, if the point of ChatGPT is to say, you know, or if the point of the writing assignment is to practice argumentation and crafting an argument and a thesis and almost the structure of an essay, then I think it might actually be a very positive thing to introduce ChatGPT and have students turn in, say, an outline of their essay, what they want to cover, what they want to talk about, and then work with ChatGPT to create a full-fledged essay using that outline. Because ChatGPT is best when you are working with it, when you're taking what it spits, when you give it a prompt and give it some ideas, take what it spits out, and then proofread it, edit it, take it from like okay writing to phenomenal writing. That's where I think that ChatGPT is utilized the best. And one thing I think it's really important for everyone, particularly teachers, to keep in mind is that ChatGPT is not going anywhere, and ChatGPT will only get better, and there will only be new versions, and there will always, from now on, be something like ChatGPT that students can utilize in order to write. It's not going anywhere. And just like the calculator, for the rest of people's lives, they're going to have access to this tool. But also, like the calculator, as I mentioned before, I think it's very, very, very important that while people are learning how to write, ChatGPT is not used. Just like calculators aren't allowed in most schools when you're learning how to, say, add and subtract and divide and all of these basic fundamental bits of math, you don't use a calculator because you have to actually learn how to do those simple steps before you can utilize a tool to sort of accelerate and do more of the advanced stuff faster. So I think that ChatGPT is going to be kind of a mixed tool, and I think it's going to take a very long time to actually introduce and have ChatGPT be fully introduced into humanities, because I think that many teachers, particularly ones who don't really understand ChatGPT and what it is and its capabilities, I think many of them are going to be very fearful and just try to outright ban it, which I don't think is beneficial. Writing tools and plagiarism tools have always existed. They've always been there for students to use if they want. ChatGPT is nothing new in this case. However, what ChatGPT does have the capacity to do is speed up the more monotonous parts of writing in order to get to the core of the learning. I think that there's a lot of potential benefits to be gained from working with ChatGPT as a teacher and not purely against it. And I touched on this before, but in my world, in my vision, if I was a teacher, most of my writing assignments, unless I was assigning them purely for the reason to teach students how to write, most of my writing assignments would be having students create an outline for their essay and turn that in. Have that be completely their original work, their own thought, their thesis, maybe some piece of evidence, topic sentences, analysis, all of these different pieces, their work that they turn in, and then work with ChatGPT in order to turn that outline into a full essay. By doing this, you're not only preserving that like core fundamental idea of creativity and the creative thought and having students learn how to think and create arguments, you preserve that while still teaching them and giving them practice with a tool that is going to be with them for the rest of their life, that they will always be able to use. And I think it does both students and teachers a big disservice to not at least consider how to utilize ChatGPT in their classroom. I think, in summary, my big question for teachers to ponder, if you're a teacher, is why do you assign writing assignments? What is the point of having students write? And then think about whether the introduction of ChatGPT actually harms that goal, and create a plan from there. Anyways, that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about today. That's really just my opinion. There are many, many other views that you can have, and there are many other true things that you can believe about ChatGPT. So I'm curious what you all think. Let me know in the comments what your opinions on ChatGPT's introduction to humanities is, and whether you think it should just be completely banned, whether you think it should just be free for all, allow it all the time, or whether there's some sort of middle ground or gray area that you think teachers and students should tread. So let me know down in the comments what your thoughts are, and I'll catch you all next time. Goodbye.